big game on the road for the Canes tonight. Big game on the road. And it's actually, and this doesn't happen many times, throughout a season, and it's part of the reason why I love sports, part of the reason why we all love sports is the storytelling, right? The narratives. Anytime a sport wanes in popularity, could be something as simple as like, I don't know, they're on 17 different streaming services. It's hard to find, but the think pieces are always, you need to be better storytellers. You need to make them care about the players. You need to let them in on everything going on. In media, as a sports fan, you track storylines throughout a season. The 3 storylines that this show, when it comes to the Canes, that we've kind of continuously consistently talked about throughout the season thus far, are all in play today. The first one we put in play is, how do stars play in big games? Right? Because over the last 6 years, we've seen the Canes be really, really good during the regular season, and they haven't gotten over the hump in the biggest games of the year, which would be the playoffs. So we decided, let's see if the Stars are leveling up their play in big games in the regular season, because that might be an indicator of something changing from the past half decade. Second storyline that we've tracked. How much edge does this team show in situations where the moment calls for it? How much edge, how much sandpaper, how much grit does certain players on the team bring up when the team's a little dull, maybe they don't start as much as 82-game season, you're in the slog, you're those things. And then the third is the goalie situation. And we're not exclusively tracking that one, right? Everybody that covers the Canes is tracking the goalie situation, and how much shoulda, woulda, coulda are we going to be screaming about in the offseason about you shoulda, woulda, coulda done something at the trade deadline, or you shoulda, woulda, coulda moved on from Freddie, or you shoulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda. So those are the 3 storylines we've been tracking. I think all 3 come into play tonight. How do Stars play in a big game? Well, is this a big game? You're darn right it is. You're 2 of the 3 best teams in the Metropolitan right now. You've played the same amount of games. They're beating you in points. So you're looking up at them in the standings, and you want to close that gap. You want to close that gap. There's a few other added things that we'll talk about in a second here, but this is it's on the road. It's in an environment that you have a lot of familiarity with. It's a big game.
One thing to know about the Capitals is that about a month ago, you were able to beat them 3-2 in Dmitry Orlov revenge game. And then after that, the Caps got hot, and they did it without Alex Ovechkin playing for a majority of those games.
Option number 2, storyline number 2. Thank you for the transition, Graham. Edge. Edge can come from anywhere, right? And we've talked about who is going to be the instigator, who is going to be the one that can manufacture it. And Svech's name has come up a bunch. Pyotr Kochetkov occasionally can be that guy with his outlandish decisions to fly out of the crease or to throw his stick or all these crazy things he's done. Another one can be a one-off. Orlov going back to Washington, an emotional place. He had a good game last time, 2 goals that, if you go back and watch those, they're 5%ers, right? Those shots, the angles, they're not likely to go in, but it just felt like because it was Orlov, because it was in Washington, because he was back and the hockey gods wanted to give him a little something, he came away with some big moments. If he does that again, that can be the edge, that can be the spark. Sometimes it's the dumbest things that motivate athletes. Let's win this one for Orlov. Let's win this one for Orly, as they call him. Like if that becomes the rallying cry that gets you out of a funk, go for it. Right? If Dmitry Orlov could choose like one away game that the team is going to just absolutely dominate this year, it's going to be the ones in Washington, right? He wants to have those bragging rights over the players that he played with for a decade. And then goalie. Goalie. Don't assume Dusty Tokarski. I stumbled through that. Dustin Tokarski is a stud because of one game. He played very well in his one game. But didn't we do that with Spencer Martin a couple times already, where he played great and we're like, oh, how lucky are the Canes to have that type of number 3 goalie that you can roll out there every 4 or 5 nights or 4 or 5 games if you need to. Oh, look how great he was. Look at the shutout. Look how great he was. And then suddenly he's back in the AHL and not always stopping pucks there. Tokarski signed, right? First NHL game since 2022. Gets out there, his first game, has a great game. You thank him for that game, you still don't want to depend on him. Which means Pyotr Kochetkov still has to be an Iron Man until if and or when Freddie Anderson comes back from the knee injury he's dealing with. And that means Pyotr Kochetkov puts up a shutout in his last game. That lasts about till the final buzzer in that game, and already it's got to be about the next. You know, stopping pucks last Tuesday doesn't stop any pucks on Friday. And that's going to be brutal for Kochetkov throughout the season. There are no breaks. Literally, he has to be an Iron Man. I was actually it wasn't just. I do that all the time. I say like the other day. It was like probably months ago. But I listened to a podcast with a literal Iron Man, like the guys that run the 100-mile races or whatever, like the ultra Ironmans. And he would literally, I keep saying literally, I don't know what that's going on. It's Friday. He would take a nap for like 4 minutes. He'd be running on the side of the road and his body would be so tired that he could lay down, set an alarm for like 4.5 minutes later and actually sleep. That's going to be Pyotr Kochetkov this year until Freddie Anderson gets back. Right? After every game, he's going to lay down, like whatever hotel they're at on the road or back in his own bed. And it's not going to be like I close my eyes and I got to count sheep and I have to, have all the most embarrassing moments from 8th grade pop into my head and go, no, get out of there. I'm trying to sleep. He's not going to have to do any of that. He's going to be exhausted. His body's going to be tired. His mind's going to be tired. He could lay down on the side of the road. And if you give him 4 minutes and 30 seconds, he'll sleep for 4:27. And at the beginning of a little bit of a road trip here, right? Little hit the road, get up to Washington. If you look at the upcoming schedule, they go Washington, then at the Rangers, then at Nashville, then at the Devils. If that's going to be a test. He's going to get tired. There's probably going to have to be one of those back-to-backs in the middle, 22nd, 23rd. Tokarski's going to have to take over, and Kochetkov's going to have to use that game to get back to 100% fully charged. I am a big Pyotr Kochetkov fan. Big Pyotr Kochetkov fan. And I've been advocating for him since early in last season. Remember, he started last year with, I think it was the Syracuse Crunch or something like that, until injuries very quickly brought him up. I've been a big Pyotr Kochetkov fan for a long time. We have to address the challenge that is ahead of him for the next 2 months. Freddie comes back and you can start doing the 1 game on, 1 game off thing like they did at the end of last year. His job becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. But tonight is a night where, I want to see him fight through. And then the next, probably 3 of the next 4 games he's going to have to fight through before you get home.